So hi, I'm Mahesh.
Hi, I am Akshay.
So my name is Saadaa.
This is for an aspiring entrepreneur who is relatively young now, trying to build their career. Or how to think about capital when they start a business, whether they should start a business, when they should start a business, what do they look for. One of the best ways to do it is to go and be the number 2 or number 3 at a. Right? So thank you so much for taking this initiative. So the context of the discussion is कि we are trying to figure out. This is for the viewer who is relatively young now, trying to build their career, and probably somewhere or the other as an aspiring entrepreneur, whether it is today or maybe in the next half of their career. So the goal is to share our journeys and give more context on all these aspects, whether it's how to think about capital when they start a business, whether they should start a business, when they should start a business, what do they look for. So hi, I'm Mahesh. Me and Akshay have been co-founders of Saadaa. I have been born in a business family, and I think I've been very fortunate to learn a lot of things from the perspective of I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I think, very early in my life. And so far, I've gotten here. So the journey of bootstrapping an apparel company, and this is not our first business together, has been very interesting. And the core reason to do this is that there is joy to discovery and creation of something.
Hi, I am Akshay. I am co-founder at Saadaa. Before Saadaa, I've done a couple of things where I've tried to convert my passion into business and trying to live along your passion and trying to convert that. I've tried my hands in music. I started a company in that and kind of putting some art perspective into technology. Yeah.
Thanks, by the way. First of all, thanks Akshay and Mahesh for having me on the show. Yes, my name is Hardik. I have done my graduation from a tier 3 engineering college. I sort of lost my interest in third year itself when I realized engineering is not going anywhere and so is my career. I saw the seniors struggling, and that was a trigger point for me to identify that the path of college, job, MBA, better job is is not as straightforward as it looks like. So that was the trigger point when I started to dabble with entrepreneurship, started a couple of companies, like again, at a very nascent stages, just getting excited with having a business card in the pocket and having a website around. But then the entrepreneurship bug was always there. As I said, in second year, I got that spark. So I started my first venture, subsyking.com. It was Big Basket equivalent, but in 2012. So obviously did not fly off that well. It was in Jaipur only. Second one was Mommy's Kitchen. So I did my back-to-back ventures, and Mommy's Kitchen was really, really close to heart, where I myself struggled. I saw so many people struggling with not having hygienic homemade food when they step out for their colleges, for working. So I realized that it's important to solve this problem rather than just keep crying over it. Scaled it to almost 4,000 to 5,000 deliveries a month, but eventually had to wind it down because we were running out of funds. And to be honest, as a co-founding team, we were not that matured enough to raise funds. In 2013, the startup culture was still just picking up. Uh, so then I realized that it's time to now move towards a stable environment because I had loans piled up. Then Treebo happened. I was the first, I think, 15th employee of Treebo. Joined there as assistant manager, now leading the entire commercial bit. So Treebo operates in the budget segment. It's the largest budget chain in hospitality segment, spanning across 120 cities, approximately 800 hotels. So yeah, that's the brief.
No, the interesting aspect of this is that I think the viewers do not know that both of you are from the same college in Jaipur.
Yeah.
And both of you are connected to Jaipur in
बंद भी हो गया है.
in an interesting capacity. So yeah, ऐसा क्या करा यार, कॉलेज ही बंद करा दिया.
यार तो colleges in
8 साल लग गए तो
so maybe I was more studious. I studied everything twice. No, yeah, so colleges back in 2004-5, they opened in Jaipur like anything, like everyone with a
Like
large
cafes
land.
in Jaipur now.
Yeah, so Sitapura area entire was flooded with engineering colleges, but obviously no, not right faculties. And yeah, so those colleges basically served as a comfort zone for students of Rajasthan.
Hmm.
If they don't want to step out of the state,
It's the
Jaipur.
best option, yeah.
But yeah, so now if you see the condition, a ton of them I have shut down or are on the verge of shutting down, or government have asked them to wind down the operation because they are not able to maintain those bare minimum quality standards of studies. But so yeah, but coming back to your point, so me and Akshay both are from same college. I was 2 year senior,
ये याद ही नहीं है आप दोनों को
1 year senior, 1 year maybe. So I think what major difference that we see where how Sada started and what route Treebo took. And what's most inspiring about Sada is that Sada is completely bootstrapped, like not a single penny raised. Specifically in the times when funding was celebrated as a final destination, not as a fuel.
Hmm.
In those times, not raising funds, delaying that temptation, building a bootstrap company fully, deploying the profits to grow the business, which is very, to be honest, archaic, but the true way of growing the business, which all the VC funded startups are also realizing now. I could see that journey very closely right from 2020 mid. I remember
End of 2020 or 2020, yeah.
I remember Akshay called about this idea that yeah, he's planning to start something, and I was like, "Dude, be careful. We are in middle of COVID. Don't step out. Do something from your house only." Uh, but yeah, glad to see where Sada is now.
One thing that I find very interesting, and I think the viewers should look at, is that if you look at both of you guys, and I wanted to draw that parallel because not many people know it. I think even a lot of the team members might not know it. Is that Akshay has never done a formal job anywhere in any corporate, and then he has always been either a freelancer or an entrepreneur. And you started as a similar journey, but then you both carved out a very different path for each other. And I think both would be, so I wanted both of you to share your parallels to that, and how both of them are journeys to take depending on what the aspiration of the individual is.
I think probably like doing job did not like even inspire me because I think while I remember graduating from college, mostly like a lot of the options for any computer science engineer at that point was people used to call it like Switch, Satyam, Wipro, Infosys, TCS. Uh,
Accenture.
then no, C से Capgemini and
Capgemini.
HCL. So you could either sit in one of these companies and like, but I did not even realize that at that point of time, like even the average package was like what 2.5 to 3.5 lakhs, and it did not even excite me. But what excited me was that like you would build something of your own that could be used by a lot of people and probably doing something that you enjoy, and then probably just the love of building was something that drove me towards not opting to probably work with someone. And the only where I've like really enjoyed working with people, where I've tried to support them in their business, was purely based on the fact of uh, you really admire someone doing something inspiring, and probably you would want to help them and build that inspiration. So work for me has been like that.
Uh, I can resonate with that feeling to a large extent. Uh, Literally, people, and I think for the right reasons, a lot of us in the college was excited with even getting 2.5L, 3L, people preparing very hard for it. Uh, as Akshay mentioned, it sort of did not settle well with me that okay, we agree that it's a tier 3 college. Okay, we have chosen it's a wrong start. Okay, but then setting the bar too low for yourself was something that did not settle well. And Akshay has rightly mentioned that was for me the trigger point to explore startup as a first job also. So that I know money पैसा तो देख ना वहाँ मिलता पर 3 लाख ना startups दे पाती initially.
Fair.
But at least startups would have given a great experience, great exposure. So that was the starting point, and yeah, so that's how I saw the job. And after working for a year, I realized that what my that company was doing initially, I realized that I can do it. Like that's not rocket science, and the amount of effort I'm putting in, I can do it on my own as well. So then I ventured into a couple of things, loved it, but realized that maybe this is not the time. Maybe this is not the time for me to continue venturing out. And by by virtue of gaining such a good experience by working in a startup, failing in 2 startups, I think that paved the way for maybe a good career. And now I can see that in the hindsight. So when Treebo happened in 2015, to be honest, when I started working, for a lot of other people who had joined from, let's say, out of college, out of MBA, or by having a proper work ex of a MNC, I think I could see them struggling to some extent versus me who went there with some experience, some on ground experience of scaling, failing, scaling, failing. And that when I saw some structure in place, structure as in there is a stable environment, there is an office, you know that there is some money that would come to your account every month. So there are few things that you don't have to worry about, right? When you are solving a problem. In Treebo also I had to start solving difficult problems right from the first month. But these other back of the mind teething problems, job or a structural job takes it away, right? So I think that paved the way for me to play on front foot, be the entrepreneur within Treebo, and execute the things that I couldn't execute otherwise outside.
Do you think is the stark difference between people who, let's say, study a lot and then are completely, say you started as your entrepreneurial journey and then went to a startup to work, right? तो पहले आपने खुद का करा उसके बाद आप गए तो that would have changed something.
Yeah.
And I think that would be very good learning for the viewers who
Sure.
who probably are not sure what to do right now, because both of you have very different journeys. He's stuck to the path of doing something on his own. You've chosen to change that and go to work somewhere. So that I think would be very interesting.
I think this is what a lot of the IIMs and a good MBA colleges started to introduce, where they mandatory asked for real job internships mandatory in at least one of the semesters. They are introducing the courses which are relevant to the world that we live in. So I think Mahesh, the only major difference that I saw in people who were coming out from MBAs were obviously it was a lot theoretical. It was not proven. It was making sense on Excel, but when you execute things in real life, it's a steep departure from what we study. I think people in MBA colleges are sort of given or hammered ambition in them. Ki you need to do a great job, you need to build your career, and subconsciously, because they have taken huge loans to support their MBAs, I think that curiosity gets killed. I think this is a quote somewhere I read: a free mind is a curious mind, right? But if, let's say, you are struggling with a lot other things in your career,
But loan तो entrepreneur भी लेता है ना?
yeah, I think
Like,
that's
probably that parallel would not be correct, I feel.
sure. I think again, that's you have taken to pursue your core interest. That MBA was done, maybe not sure if that was a core interest for that guy to do that. So I think Mahesh, that becomes a major difference. And as Akshay also mentioned, sorry, that the the ambition we were chasing in the colleges were not big enough. See, had it been, let's say, IIT, for example, every tier 3 college, not every, most of us in tier 3 college always has kiya shayad IIT mein ho jata, right? So life could have been different. I think the only difference and the only departure that I see is those people from IIT, they start at a much better I'll not say, they start at a, I think, more exciting roles, much better environment, the type of people they interact, which I think makes their trajectory completely different as compared to people from tier 3 colleges.
I think yeah, IIT is a summation of people with high IQ. Probably that makes the difference.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
No, that's fair, but then the bigger, so considering you both have been, again, not from a IIT or a premium college, I think you both have done fairly well in your life. So the question here is not कि सिर्फ IIT से क्या फर्क है. The question here is कि considering the way you guys have taken up things, तो क्या है ना, जैसे नई चीजें आप लोगों ने भी करी, तो कहीं ना कहीं that the fact that you do not make it to an IIT or make it to a premier institution can be a blessing in disguise also, right? Because there is no requirement कि आपको mandate थोड़ी है वहाँ जाना, and because you think both of you have chosen somewhere or other to do something on your own.
I think but basically what I feel is like if you have good community of say high IQ people, probably the time to success would reduce. Like you can do it with probably like not so smart people, but and I'm not saying कि जो IIT में नहीं होता वो smart नहीं होता, but if there is kind of a lower IQ, the time to succeed kind of it takes a lot of time. Is what I think.
Therefore, so when I wasn't selected in IIT at Triple E, so one thing was very clear to me that I had to work now extremely hard to, let's say, reach to the level where my counterpart IITN would reach. So that I think that now in the hindsight is a blessing in disguise. That I had to like
The attitude changes.
yeah. I was not complacent at all. Like even after going into Treebo, even after doing reasonably good things, I was never complacent because in back of the mind it is always there. Yeah, that I have to be on the top of my game. I have to work extremely hard to ensure that I continue the trajectory because it's not the good starting point that I have got. I think that is important. Otherwise, let's say if you are into the denial of it, or let's say if that is impacting you negatively, or if you are becoming a lot insecure that you are not from that institute, I think that can make a lot of damage, not just to the monetary or the career path, but just the life perspective. In
Mindset changes, yeah. No, but the one interesting aspect to your journey is that you started something on your own. You went to Treebo, right? Treebo was, I think, I think we were for the 15th. So the bigger picture here is कि someone who comes from a very different background starts to work in a startup there, and that learning experience of working in a startup while you had also done your startup, आपने खुद का भी करा हुआ है. So that parallel of what beyond the difference of you getting more stability and a structured environment, what was the stark difference that you saw that helped you, chart out your growth trajectory and become a CXO eventually?
I think a lot goes for let's say setting up some of the early people to success, like me, like many others who joined at the similar time. I think when I try to join the dots with the things that impacted my journey the most, I'll say that your co-founding team is a make or a break in the short and the long period. So for us, let's say again, kudos to said Rahul Caddy when they started and the type of leaders they were. So when you will talk to them, when you'll interact with them, and you'll work with them, you will realize that you will you will see a genuine sense of solving a problem and not doing or not starting business for some other ancillary reasons. Not at all. Solving problem was the core agenda, and everything else, be it good valuation, good money, good whatever, large company, was just eventual outcomes of it. So that I liked a lot. That we are not doing some random fancy stuff there. Uh, that is one, and B, with the authenticity you run the business. यार एक होता है कि you are making a lot biased decisions. You are becoming as a founder. Let's say you are your ego is very high, or you want people to talk to you in a certain way. You want, let's say, a separate cabin for yourself. You don't want yourself to be seen very accessible. That wasn't the case. Like, so imagine, for me, Sid always held a very, very high stature in my mind. So right from the day one, when I can see him sitting just across the table, can talk to him for anything that I need. And I, not just with me, when I'll be seeing him in other meetings, the way he is interacting, I could see that yes, things are very genuine. They are being done with business as the core interest, not someone's individual interest over anything else.
So to paraphrase, if I was to interpret it correctly, for you, the more than the idea, the more important aspect was working with the right kind of people.
Yes,
and it was a direct bet on the founding team.
Absolutely.
And founders having humility and accessibility.
Humility, accessibility, they have the right vision. So see, there could be a lot, many things, but if I have to crystallize it in one or two things, I'll say it was the perspective and the honesty of doing business. See, if I can sleep peacefully at night, that behind my back some unreasonable, biased decisions are not being taken, I can sleep peacefully at night, and that used to matter me the most, for me the most.
Okay.
Because we have seen in startup ecosystem, right, where there are various examples where founders, where the culture became a lot rotten in the companies even after them reaching a very sizable scale. So I think that we could preserve in Treebo, and like me, there are a lot of people who have spent 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the company now, and like looks like they have no plan to move on still. So
कब आ रहा है IPO?
I think
जो रुके हुए हैं
sometime.
So you chose the right founding team to bet on virtually to kickstart your career after not continuing entrepreneurship.
Yeah. To be honest, at the time of joining, I didn't know how the team will turn out. But yeah, after 2-3 months of joining, I was fairly confident that it's a right place to place a bet on. And then, see, even that is not the sufficient condition. You should get correct signals regularly. Because as you know, that founders may not change, right?
People change with time, 100%. Yeah.
Let's in the first year, second year, when we hit our first crisis, our second crisis, our third crisis, when you see the way founders have acted, your leadership, the leadership team has taken actions, not deviating, not chasing vanity metric, not just growing for the sake of growing, not at all. Like that made me realize that, and that made me comfortable कि यार, yes, I can
Commit to here.
Basically. I don't have to worry about switching कि यार growth तभी आएगी when you switch. ऐसा नहीं होता. If the launch pad is stable, you can very well have a lot of learning within the organization also.
One thing that I interestingly remember because of this is that I remember reading this or looking at a video of Patrick Bet-David where he described that the best way to, if you are coming from a background where you have no, let's say, where you're getting into startup or business for the first time or trying to build wealth, because that's, I think, a big question for everyone to think about: how do I build wealth in this world? One of the best ways to do it is to go and be the number 2 or number 3
Yeah.
at a exceptional with an exceptional founder. That changes a lot of things for you, and then you are not also taking that baggage, because being a founder, you take a lot of baggage.
Correct.
To है ना कि you have to make sure everyone gets
Yeah,
paid at the
absolutely,
right
yeah.
time. There's a lot of pressure there. So considering मतलब है ना, I find that to be मतलब to be a very fair parallel to what we are saying, and I think I'll come to Akshay to say कि considering that is the case, now do you feel that, you know, if you look at Hardik's journey की है ना, being a number 2 number 3, there are a lot of मतलब है ना, रिस्क थोड़ा कम हो जाता है, हेडेक कम हो जाती है, बट you will eventually build wealth if you are with the right people somewhere or the other. Do you think मतलब है ना, in your, if you look back, considering you never chose to do that, even though you are like a person who has tried to contribute to other people's journey also, at being a founder, does that baggage impact your journey significantly?
So I decided to work with someone who understands finance. So इसलिए अभी तक स्ट्रेस नहीं लिया मैंने.
But do you ever in hindsight feel कि मेरे को भी कोई है ना कॉर्पोरेट या एमएनसी या कैसे किसी चीज में काम करना चाहिए था?
I like, so once in my life, in probably after college, I thought I would probably choose to explore beyond India. And the reason I did not decide to move out of India was the fact that getting a visa is so difficult if you want to build something outside of India. Because at that point of time, probably like, getting a job probably in any company is easier, but probably like trying to experiment to like be in a different demographic and probably like uh, think of creating something. Because India has a weaker currency, probably you would want to build something from say wealth creation. You might want to choose to build in a different country which has say a better GDP. But I think that thought like really, the building in India, like working with someone in an MNC or did not even like excite me, to be honest, because I think the structure in these companies are so archaic that uh, you have to go. Like, there is so much bureaucracy itself in within organization, so that did not excite me, to be honest.
But then see the again for the a lot of our viewers who might be planning to start, right, or who would have started early or already in their first 6 months. The biggest question in everyone's mind is that uh, they need some backup to start. That's why people, even if let's say the MNCs are unstructured, they may not like working there, but they will still have to work there to create some backup and then start the business. In your case,
Some financial security.
some financial security.
मेरे को लगता है अनलेस बहुत ही ज्यादा कोई गरीब है तो नहीं चालू करना चाहिए. मतलब योर फैमिली वुड टेक केयर ऑफ यू eventually, even if you fail. Probably what I thought was कि
So
my
basically,
mom, my dad are there still to kind of help me glide through the early years. Like, even if I fail, probably I could still be at home, probably get things like what, unless you have a huge set of liabilities, I feel that मतलब इतना सोचना नहीं चाहिए.
got it.
मतलब क्या होगा, आप 2, 5, 10 लाख रुपए जला दोगे, वो तो आप एक तरीके से लोन भी लेते ही हो एजुकेशन पे. प्रॉब्ली यू कैन लाइक पे इट बैक आफ्टर वर्किंग.
So I think that's an interesting conclusion or sort of an insight over there, Akshay. Let's say because for a lot of people where parents can't support them, and let's say in their engineering they have taken education loan, and now engineering is also like even a Tom, Dick and Harry college is charging, let's say 4-year engineering 10 lakh rupee, 15 lakh rupee, right? So if they are sitting with this loan, even if they want to, they will not be able to start, right? So they will have to eventually start working, maybe work for 3-4 years and then take that plunge to start something on their own. So I think it's an important differentiation. And just
But I feel that even people can now start like in their colleges as well. Like who's stopping you? Ki, like see, there is no legal age of
sure,
starting a business, right? There is a legal age of getting married. There is a legal age of getting drunk. Then there is no age where you are like say being bounded कि यार आप फर्स्ट ईयर में हो तो आप कुछ स्टार्ट नहीं कर सकते.
sure.
So is what I feel that probably and lot of things are like I think probably like good businesses could also be created out of great moments of adversity as well.
Sure.
Like probably you would want to do because that's when you actually like probably face a problem, right? You face a problem probably आपको घर का अच्छा खाना नहीं मिलता तो that could have been like a tipping point of
Yeah.
you starting mommy's kitchen in a very probably and a lot of it is in a very unorganized way and you eventually find people who think similar to you and they pay you money
Yeah.
is
So when I started, just one small detail here, I had 5 lakh of education loan, and when I started Mommy's Kitchen, I had to take some loan to fund the business also. Uh, and that was a time when, while it was exciting to do finally Mommy's Kitchen, that was an idea for 5 years in the head. That idea comes to life. It's out of the world feeling. But then, when you know that you have 7-8 lakh worth of loan, जिसकी EMIs have started, and your father is paying the EMIs, and I had basic calculation in mind that for next 2 years I can experiment. My father can
loan
pay
देंगे.
for 2 years because then afterwards he will retire. So I realized कि 2 साल तक खेल सकते हैं, and that was a playground. I think that is an important differentiation or detail. Everyone should ideally clear this in mind that there is not infinite time to experiment. It's okay if you don't have backup, if you don't have enough to start, but even if you are taking a risk with the loan, there has to be a timeline, there has to be an output, and then it doesn't matter if the MNC is not providing exciting job or exciting structure, then you have to follow the better pill.
But the question here is that we are thinking about capital as a very big impediment. But the right question to ask is capital a primary impediment? In this world, at least now, I think in 2013 maybe it was a problem, but now in this world, in 2025, I don't see capital being an impediment.
But his question is ना अगर इंसान पहले ही 7 लाख रुपए गड्ढे में है तो उसको लाख रुपए भी अगर कोई भी चीज कोई चालू करेगा कुछ तो एक वर्किंग कैपिटल में भी चाहिए हो to
But then there is no necessity to raise debt, na? You can raise right now in this world. You get grants, you get so many. You've gone to Peter Thiel Fellowship also, so I think that's an interesting journey where you get a grant or you can raise equity also. In this world, at least in 2025, it is a lot easier to raise capital or to think about capital. I don't think capital. Would you say capital is still such a big impediment?
Yes, so I think what has changed over the last 5 years, Mahesh, is that now a lot of the early stage investors are also looking forward to an idea where there is a clear path to revenue and hence profitability. Even early stage investors are not okay to just bid on the idea.
Okay, नहीं इन्वेस्टर की बात नहीं जैसे इतनी सारी ग्रांट्स हैं जैसे
यार ग्रांट्स में
आपको कोवर्किंग स्पेस मिल जाती है effectively for free.
बट अक्षय इसमें भी इफ यू सी पेपर पे तो है बहुत सारी ग्रांट्स बट to accessible by common man, these are very very limited. Like I can't name that organization where we had to deal with during our college days.
नहीं अब तो जैसे आप चैट जीपीटी में डालोगे तो ही आपको इतनी चीजें मिल जाएंगी कि कौन पैसा दे सकता है.
Sure, see, it's point like you have a list, but how many of them will materialize for you, and to what extent? Because just imagine. So, Mahesh, coming back to your question also, to reach to the level of getting a grant, or your idea is worthy enough for a grant, there is an MVP, and that needs money, time, and energy. And at least what I realized, and this could be just with me, that working on an idea parallelly along with the job was next to impossible. So let's say if you have to build an MVP and then go for a grant, debt, because in debt also they will not give debt without some proof of concept, right? And I think that is where the aspiring entrepreneur have to be very calculative and emotionally very strong, in my opinion, that it's okay. There is a crunch. I have few lakhs of liability and it's okay. I will need few more liabilities to reach to an MVP and hence raise a further grant. I think that mental stability, if you get of those 1.5 years where you are traversing this very, very risky journey, I think then it's a journey upwards. Because once you get a grant, once you have access to some capital, then raising further capital is not that big a challenge.
No, but what I think is that the current landscape of entrepreneurship, I think
It is relatively easier.
it's a lot easier to raise capital, and I think capital is not the right impediment at this point of time for someone who wants to start. The right question probably is that
और वो भी है ना, अगर आप 5 लोगों को अपना आइडिया बता के अगर आप 5 दोस्त भी आपके धंधे में 10-10 हज़ार रुपये नहीं डाल पाए, then probably
the ideas may be not relevant.
या फिर आप मत डरो, मतलब
So bigger
So actually,
मतलब वही है
capital is important, not Mahesh. That stems from the fact that let's say you belong to a lower middle class family. Even parents would have the expectation that if college खत्म हो गया है, the person would become self-independent, right? So that's where I think not for raising capital for business. I think that might be relatively easy, but how will you fund your personal expenses?
let's assume you don't have the background or the financial security to start a business instantly or not to take up that liability, but you are but you still are aspirational. You have the aspiration to do something, whether it's starting your own business or you have that entrepreneurial mindset. Considering both of your journeys are exactly, है ना, both of your journeys started with the same mindset, but then you chose a different path, he chose a very different path to continue being an entrepreneur with trying different things. And while you chose ki nahi, theek hai, I want to start and find a great founding team and then try to be a number 2, number 3 there and then build wealth out of that. For someone who does not have that financial security, what is a better way, what better path to choose according to both of you?
Yeah, I think one, at least in the hindsight, that I can say is courage plays a very important role. Okay. 100%. So if you have the courage to manage that emotional uh, uh, situation where you are unclear of what the future lies and people are expecting a lot different things from you, then you should definitely start. Starting early gives you the chance to fail early and pivot to very well whenever you want. Failing at now at my scale, let's say if I start today, and the consequences would be much more difficult. So if you have courage, if you have perspective, I think start.
और ऐसे बोला है कैमरे पे इन्होंने
नहीं तो you are saying कि uncertainty है, तो क्या बोलते हैं, तो
मैं
uncertainty
कैमरे बता दूंगा कितना बड़ा घर है
नहीं तो लेकिन रिस्क तो है ही ना, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी तो है ही भाई.
So that's why I said courage. So see, there are, if your family is supportive right from day one, you are lucky. They started to support. But that's what I'm saying. If you are courageous enough and you can stand by your decision, you have conviction in the idea, then ditch it. Take the most riskiest path of starting your own venture, and be prepared to fail. Like, if I have to give the advice to young people who are starting up, I'll say that don't get too attached with your first idea. It will fail. Second will fail. You might have a shot at the third one, right? If you are clear about it, I think the journey becomes a lot more easier.
So when to marry an idea?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever marry the idea.
अच्छा,
You should never, yeah, that's right.
okay.
No, but I think let's try to complete the first full spectrum. कि क्या बोलते हैं, you are saying that even though you chose a different path,
Yeah.
it's if you have the conviction and you're able to deal with uncertainty,
Yes.
you should go ahead and choose what AK has done.
Absolutely, hands down.
So AK, do you agree with him? Or like considering now you can look back at hindsight, you've seen his journey, you know what you're doing, and you know where you are. In hindsight, do you think, and we have a lot of people who have gone through a similar journey also, would you say that that's a better path? Still, would you agree with that?
I agree.
अच्छा.
देखो एक तो हम सेम कॉलेज से तो ये तो कर ही लेते हैं.
नहीं मुझे तो मतलब आई पर्सनली फील कि मतलब है ना देयर इज अ मतलब डिपेंडिंग ऑन वेयर यू आर एंड आई थिंक दिस असेसमेंट ऑफ व्हिच आइडिया इज ग्रेट और व्हाट यू आर सपोज्ड टू डू आई थिंक मैटर्स अ लॉट मतलब इट्स हैज अ बिग से इन इट हालांकि यू नो फेलिंग अर्ली हेल्प्स यू अ लॉट इन अ लॉट ऑफ वेज
No, मेरे को लगता है like even if you start with the stupidest of the idea, probably like
Correct.
you will learn a lot, and probably
Correct.
that मतलब the faster you learn, probably the faster you will like iterate and then get better. So probably it's like about going to gym. Like probably you lift like say a 2 kg dumbbell. It doesn't mean that you will just stick on that. Like probably if you're consistent, though, you will definitely like upgrade.
So let me put it this way: idea doesn't matter.
idea does not matter 100% हाँ.
I think what matters is if you are able to, if you if you if you are ready to fail. I think a lot of us ends up imagining ourselves being successful too soon, imagining ourselves being in deep money too soon. What media shows us that success means a Ferrari in the garage. There are people in the late 20s have attained financial independence, and that's the only path to success. I think that creates a lot of fear, where people end up sort of just try to quicken the outcome of their business. But let's say if you are clear that you can start and you can fail, essentially you have secured your bright future, at least as an employee. That is for sure. But vice versa may not be true. Let's say if you say no, matlab, startup is too risky for me, let me be an employee right from day one. I think that's a riskier outcome.
So to paraphrase, you should take risk early and then fail fast
100%.
just to get through that process because taking risk later would be. But don't you think statistically, I think if you look at, I think we've spoken about this at your home only that older founders are fundamentally more successful compared to very young founders because then very young founders make very basic mistakes that end up becoming a very big problem. And I remember a quote from Jack Ma कि you should first work with someone, learn to do things properly, then start something on your own. But because what you are saying and what somewhere or the other isn't that a context to
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think, Mahesh, the people who plan to start up early in their life, I think, are already at in my head, a certain level of intelligence, perspective. That that is, let's say, that certain level of intelligence and perspective, let's say, is already equivalent to some 3-4 years of employment somewhere. So let's say that some humans who have the drive to do something are already ahead in the curve in terms of learning that someone else would ideally learn on the job. Right? So that's why you see some even the founders who would have failed, very interesting, very genuine human beings, right? They would have not. Akshay is the example. You are the example, right? You may not have formal employment, but there is absolute no regret of not being able to work anywhere, right? I don't think that changed anything in Akshay, or that would have changed anything in Akshay, or that could have might be.
I completely disagree with that, but like AK has to be the person who has to answer that. Would it have changed if you would have worked somewhere else? I think definitely. I think the way he is taken up is very different.
मतलब वो तो होता ही है यार मतलब why did you not decide to do a job?
I did. I worked in a consulting firm. You just forgot about it.
ये क्रॉप कर दे मैं भूल गया
कोई बात नहीं. नहीं तो so indeed, Mahesh, your example is also like couple of years in consulting.
1.5 years.
1.5 years, so not much, right? But then you have not just started one, but many such businesses, right? And I can say that on the camera. People know that you have multiple businesses.
You can say it.
जनता सोच रही है यार हमारे बॉस बहुत अमीर है अप्रेजल भी आ रहा है. So you have started a lot of businesses at very young age, right? Did you ever felt कि यार 1.5 साल नहीं शायद 5 साल कंसल्टिंग में और रहता तो my sharpness or approach toward business would have been better?
I would probably say, matlab, I don't think a particular industry is important. ऐसा consulting का नहीं.
Any job in another firm.
But क्या है, what I feel is, and I feel that example of Jack Ma is very relevant, and I'm somewhere out there trying to be, it's very hypocritical of me to say कि मैं, मतलब I started my first thing I did was I worked in a startup for around 2.5 years when I was 18. Post that I worked in a consulting firm to evaluate कि दोनों अलग अलग parallels हैं. But क्या somewhere or the other I feel कि one thing that I see, and if I go back in hindsight, that I genuinely feel is a significant delta is that when you learn to do things properly, or there are some things that you learn when you do them. But I personally feel for someone who wants to start something eventually, if they were to choose an industry in particularly जैसे मुझे X industry में करना है, they should first work there because that gives them a lot of context. क्या होता है ना, it's very easy to have that bias towards your own idea.
Sure.
Very, very easy. And you learn by going into some or the other industry and working on it, and then that makes a very big difference.
Sure. Correct.
I personally feel ki what you do matters a lot more than who you are and how intelligent you are.
Or what the background is.
Your market size, the size of the market, what you do makes immense, मतलब it makes a huge difference. तो कहीं ना कहीं क्या है, for anyone to, मतलब है ना,
And where you operate from.
where you operate from 100%. So what you do is so much more important than, thinking about how intelligent you are.
Sure.
Because somewhere or the other क्या है, वो base इतना बड़ा नहीं है. वो जो, I think somewhere or the other someone who's extremely high intellect will probably not be an entrepreneur because it's so stupid.
Sure. But
Somewhere or the other, there is a lot of problems to being an entrepreneur that you do not see. It impacts your health, it impacts because if you look at the founder community now,
Sure.
no one is able to take care of their health. It's so difficult.
Sure.
So definitely, I think I would have worked somewhere. I think that is something I feel ki learning better हो जाती.
Then
My question is like,
Yeah.
if you had to like now, suppose एक scenario हो कि you would decide to work with someone, like how Hardik decided to probably work with Treebo. Who would you want to work with?
That's actually a good question. Ki what would you look at someone to work
At this
with?
point, like
exactly. As if you're
Like,
it's your
it's a-
first day, let's say you have just out of the college.
Let's assume I'm 18 and then
18, right now you don't know whether you want to start up, but you have some kida to start up, but you still don't want to start up. You believe in the philosophy कि पहले कहीं काम करता है.
हाँ,
ठीक है?
आज का महेश 21 साल का है,
हाँ.
वो कहाँ जॉब करेगा?
Exactly.
No, I think matlab, the relevant point being
All the information, like with your skill set, even if you were not 21, suppose you were.
Oh, I feel कि if today someone had to go out there and think about whom to work with, 3-4 ही चीजें होती हैं यार, मतलब ज़्यादा difficult नहीं है. One is that you need the person to be extremely high, raw intelligence wise, extremely, very, very intellectually sharp, so that मतलब you learn thinking from a very different angle. क्योंकि अपना
How do you know that before
you meet that person, right?
company?
No, but you meet that person, ना, you don't, मतलब you, it's iterative कि आप 10 जॉब अप्लाई करोगे, 10 जगह इंटरव्यू दोगे, आपको पता होता है, अब तो इन्फॉर्मेशन इतनी ओपन है.
But my problem is that let's say
आपकी इंटरेक्शन तो एचआर के साथ होगा ना?
नहीं इंटरव्यू अपन अर्ली स्टेज स्टार्टअप में काम करना चाहिए ना. मतलब मेरा थॉट ये है,
तो एक ही irrespective of अपन अर्ली स्टेज लेट स्टेज,
बट लेट स्टेज करना नहीं है ना. मेरा पॉइंट है कि अगर किसी को कुछ आज करना है, मैं बोल रहा हूँ एक पैरेलल था कि आप हाई रिस्क ले रहे हो.
नहीं, it's about you. It's a personal question for you.
क्या?
If you had to like opt for a job now.
I would not do it now. That's the reality. Not at all.
coffers are full now. Job की जरूरत नहीं है. So I think what Akshay also wanted to ask, and I was going to the same question. Let's say if you are starting just immediately after your college, you have to do a job.
He's not happy that I said मैं अभी नहीं करूँगा.
नहीं.
हाँ.
You don't know which industry you want to take an experience from. Okay, so let's say because you don't know where you would like to start after 2-3 years. Let's say if I want to start something in hospitality, and let's say had I been clear at the age of 18, then I can choose to work at a hospitality startup.
That clarity is not there ना mostly. हाँ.
So let's say I'll join Mostly any early startup with good signals, good basics in place, right? And then eventually figure out what should I do. But then the difficult junction comes, Mahesh, where you are into the job for 2 years, got good growth, well settled, money come in the bank. How will you then decide to move on and take a risk, the biggest risk of your life?
That's exactly what happened, that I chose to completely leave the organization. Even the startup I was being offered.
So, what's that right duration of working? I think this is something our audience and viewers
So the right question is when to start and how much to work.
how much to work for.
I think, see, I think it's very subjective कि कब start करना चाहिए. But I feel कि there is, if someone works somewhere for some time, it benefits you a lot because you are learning a lot of things when you're young and your capacity to learn is very high.
That is given. But 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years.
I think that's completely dependent on the person who's doing it. मतलब ideally आपकी intellectual growth जब आपको लगे कम हो रही है या अब आपका सीखना कम हो रहा है, the pace of learning is decreased, you should then choose to.
But then imagine the pace of learning is maintained. You are in the job 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. By the way, that is also pushing your chances to start now. So, will you suggest that, let's say, someone with high intellect, 2-3 years of learning in one organization, or let's say couple of organizations, but within 2-3 years itself, that's good enough to take the risk, because that learning का तो कोई end नहीं है. Learning will keep happening if you are in the job also, right? But you'll have to put some cutoff to get your journey started.
If you are not, so I think I would actually pivot into, instead of time, that I don't think is the right metric to measure. The right metric to measure is if you are able to ask yourself the right question कि the startup the idea that I have, or the startup that I want to, the business I want to start, is the market right? Can it, मतलब है ना, whatever effort I'm going to put in, would I get a better outcome? And if you are able to do that, मतलब अगर if you are able to ask yourself the right questions and come up to the right conclusions, then the time frame does not matter, वो 1 साल हो चाहे 5 साल हो. Because I feel this notion, क्योंकि जो courage वाला mindset आपको चाहिए to start, वो तो हमेशा रहेगा, because the propensity of an individual to overestimate risk will always be there.
But Mahesh, this might see I don't think courage is a constant. I think courage and your willpower declines with time.
Willpower definitely does.
I think even with courage, let's say currently you are, the reason why someone is courageous at the age of 18 and 19 could very well be that there is no strings attached. Life is relatively simpler. 6 years, 7 years, 8 years down the line, that equation will change, and the potency of courage might change. Fair, right? And the life would look much more, pink, or let's say a lot more exciting with good job, good growth. Marriage is on the corner.
Salary is a drug, you are then used to the expenses, everything. Correct.
26, 27, the next thing is marriage on the mind, and you can't delay that outcome by another 5 years if you want to start up at 27, 28, right? So that's why, uh, uh, at least when I was going through that phase, I realized that before 27, at least till, and something happened 27, 28, 29, the ability to take risk, I think, drastically goes down for whatever reason. At least happened with me. Till before 26, like I can jump on a new idea overnight and launch it in 2 months without worrying about my regular income will take a hit, or what my account will go down to zero, etc., etc. So, is there a sweet spot to start?
I would say that, मतलब मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ ना, I think my whole context remains the same, but I think I'm probably I have been exceptionally lucky to be in that environment where I've been given a, मतलब I don't have that कि है ना इस एज के बाद रिस्क नहीं ले सकते. I think the way the family that I'm from, the way I've been born up, huge difference. But I still feel if you are right कि if you are getting married, if you know that you want to get married and you're going to that stage of your life, if you start before doing that, that makes a lot of sense. But I still feel कि age से ज़्यादा important क्या है, you are able to ask yourself the right questions. Sure. Because I think that way of thinking, if you are able to ask yourself the right questions, come to that conclusion, because you are able to get to the right thought process कि अच्छा मेरा market जो मैं जहाँ मैं करना चाह रहा हूँ, that idea makes sense. I'm extremely passionate, and it's because motivation and passion are sometimes fleeting, but factually you have to be there to think about it that way. And if you're able to do that, even if you're able to do that at 23, then it's good. Even if you're able to do it at 28, it's good. The point is ki if you are getting married and if you want to start a family, that definitely stops, or kahin na kahin usse you become more conscious about taking risks. That's definitely there.